helped an 86-year-old man lose his virginity in my femboy ass. It was a really touching moment, honestly.
It has to have some sort of effect
correspond to
on reality. No, not the correspondence. That has some sort of effect. So it cannot be some causally inert thing.
Nigga,
That has
what?
no
Wait, what do you
reality.
mean by fact? Okay, if it doesn't correspond
Effect.
with reality or
Effect.
exist.
I disagree with
Effect.
Wait,
yes. Effect. Yes.
who is that? Bro? Chill out, bro. You said what?
My bad. Affect. You saying affect like affecting something? Like
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me get this straight. So the precondition for existence is to affect something?
No, I'm saying that what I think for something to exist is for something to be causally inert. So if an
What?
entity, look, it has to interact with the physical world, other than or unless my fault.
Okay.
If it doesn't interact with the physical world, then
This is just
I
the
have
most
no reason to
trivialist
believe that.
definition of existence I've ever seen. You're literally just saying that it has to be causally, I
Inert.
guess, inert, or I guess has to have the ability to interact with causal things for it to
No,
exist.
the physical
Obviously,
world.
abstract doesn't do that.
Yeah, that's why I disagree with after. Look, there's two hypotheses.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
If it's under that
Wait,
definition,
I'm gonna
it's
explain.
irrelevant.
No, I'm just gonna explain. So if there's two hypotheses, H1 and H2, H1 just says that abstract things don't exist, and H2 says that they do exist, right? Under hypothesis 2, there's going to be no evidence for these abstract things existing besides.
Okay, send the
Or actually,
argument
there's
chat.
going to be,
Send the in chat.
yeah, so there's going to be no evidence for these things' existence because they cannot affect the physical world at all. We have no way to determine that they exist if we cannot, like, empirically verify.
Okay. This is kind of confusing. So there will be a distinction between existence and then what it means to affect from that same set existence. You know, semantics.
No, I just see no reason to believe something exists if we cannot physically
I have a question. Do you
interact.
think all it means to exist is to be what there is?
No, I disagree with that.
Okay. So when I say thing, that it has a reference because obviously I'm talking about something which is a thing. So in order for thing to even be uttered, it would have to have some type of existence, otherwise it'd just be a contradiction.
No, you can have you can have things with no referent. It's just the fact that these no referent things would have, or we would have no way
So
to
I'm talking
find.
about things with a reference.
Yeah, so things without a referent, things with a referent, things with a referent can be defined coherently, whilst things without a referent cannot be defined coherently.
Yeah,
because
they have
there
no
would be
reference. You're not talking about that.
look, I'm not done. But if they have no referent, then there's no way to prove that these things actually exist. So, like for example, my keyboard, right? I'm typing on the keyboard. You know what a keyboard is because it actually exists in reality. If we say
because
something like
you're referencing it, right?
yeah, but you say something like God that we have no way to actually determine exists besides philosophical arguments, which I don't know if you consider philosophical arguments to be evidence, but I'm pretty sure they're not evidence.
You can give rational credence to God.
Yeah.
I think you're assuming the only real way to exist, or
No,
the
I
only
think
real. Wait. Chill. I wasn't done. I think you're kind of confused. I think you're assuming the only way to exist is to go to a physical mode of existence, and to then ask the question, how does your view deal with a priori things?
a priori things.
Yes. How does the view deal with it?
Yeah, I'd probably just adopt an empiricist stance, as well as the first thing. I'm not actually assuming that. I think that there's no basis, there's no real reason to actually believe that abstract things exist.
What do you mean by reason? It's just confusing because remember, because last time I already got your semantics for what it means to exist. You just said that we cannot conduct whether or not something can physically exist, but that isn't the same as existence itself and what it means to exist. Because, like I said, you said.
I told you
Wait. Remember.
Wait, Zeni, you think God is physical?
Wait, chill.
I mean, for this, I'd probably just assume God does not exist.
Wait, you think God is physical?
For this debate, I just assume God does not exist.
No.
Okay, it's not a theology.
No, like outside of it, do you think God is physical?
No, obviously not.
Okay.
I just want to debate.
Anyways, but yeah. But to finish my point, we already got the semantics for what it means to exist. Additionally, we got the semantics for what it means to be a referent. I assume that just means obviously to have some type of identity. If that's the case, and there's a identification to what do you mean no? What do you mean by no that a referent doesn't have an identity, bro?
No, a referent, I'm pretty sure is defined as the thing in the world that a word or phrase, my
Something can
fault,
be
deems
referenced.
for. So, like the morning star and evening star have the same referent, which is just the planet Venus. But God, well, we cannot determine whether God
Do you
actually
want
has
to
a
like
referent.
look up what referent is? I
I
think
really
it's
just,
just. I
uh,
literally just think it's something that
look
has
at-
an something that has type of identity. That's all I think it is. All it is. So a referent by definition, analytically, you can look it up too. The thing that a word or phrase denotes or stands for.
yeah, that
So
I
I
really just,
think, or rather,
I
there's a
really,
different definition too. It says the meaning of referent is that one that refers or is referred to. So in each of these definitions, there is an identity relation.
I mean, look, I'm not denying that. I'm saying that a referent, right, is just a thing that stands from a thing in the world that a phrase or word stands for.
Oh, and you think
Is
you'll
that
give me this,
again?
and you
That's
think a
what
referent exists?
a referent exists. I don't know what you mean
Yeah,
by exist, but
it's a thing or it has a property.
like if it interacts with the physical world, yeah, like a keyboard and the word that we use
Okay,
to
why does it have to
refer to the.
interact with the physical world to exist?
Yeah, because other than that, how can we actually determine that this thing exists? Again, with the hypothesis 1 and 2.
Bro,
Hypothesis 1 would be more reasonable because number one, it assumes the things. It does not assume the abstract things' existence. It only assumes that things that exist need to be physically inert. And for the second
okay, you're not.
hypothesis, look. For the
Wait,
second hypothesis,
go
there's
ahead.
no actual way to determine the abstract things exist because again, these things are causally inert. They
Okay,
cannot
wait, is
interact
this
with
the
the physical
argument,
world.
chat?
They already sent it. But yeah,
Okay, if an
these
entity
things
does not
cannot
causally
physically.
interact with the physical world, then it is not real. Abstract entities can. Oh my god, you're not. I don't think you get my. I don't think you get my position because you're confused. I think you're assuming. Wait, chill out, bro. I literally think you're assuming the only real mode that something can take is if it's indexed to something physical, which I just entirely disagree. You're not really giving an argument for that. And to
I
attack
mean,
the
yeah,
chill. To attack the hypothesis point, the hypothesis only accounts for things that are physical and can be physically proven, which obviously means through some type of empirical fact or empirical method. You can rationally account for an a priori truth and just say that, well, the a priori thing is just necessarily the case, and that's just how it is. Like, for example, 2 plus 2 equaling 4 is a necessary truth in any and every possible world, given the axioms of mathematics. You wouldn't need to go to every corner store and see a nigga write 2 plus 2 equaling 4 to reach that confirmation. So I think your view is just wrong and doesn't account for other things which can exist or take the mode of existence. And I already got your semantics for what it means to be a referent. In order for something to exist, it must be a referent. Or my fault, in order for it to be a referent, it must exist. Simple as that.
yeah, okay. Look. All right, I already defeated that, but you never actually let me finish why H1 would be more powerful because H1 would be more powerful because H2 genuinely actually has no evidence because
You said
again,
what?
yeah, H2 hypothesis would have no evidence because look, can you determine whether something exists without, like, or can you have a basis to say that something exists without actually having a reason for it existing? Like,
No,
for
what does
example,
that mean?
if I say modal realism is true, right? And someone says that, well, prove modal realism, and I say, oh well, X, Y, Z reason, blah blah blah, means that modal realism is true.
Okay.
And then
Oh,
someone
okay.
says,
Are
oh
you
well,
asking
and
me?
these.
Can you have a basis for something
Now I'm
without?
saying that because these things actually do not interact with the world, how can we determine their existence? How can we
Via
determine the
axioms,
existence of something without it interacting with the physical world?
via axioms or logical truth.
Via axioms or
Clearly,
logic.
it
How do
will literally
they
just
look?
say
How
stop.
do
Stop.
axioms and
Can I
logical
finish, bro?
truths
Can I finish? I'm not
determine the
done.
existence of Africa?
Bro.
Yeah,
Can
I'm
I
just
give you?
questioning that.
Wait, stop. Chill out, bro. Let me just say a point. So to finish the argument, like a logical truth or something that's just tautologically true would clearly explain the meaning of an a priori truth, or rationally justified. You're rationally justified in believing 2 plus 2 equals 4 because via the axioms of math, that's the thing that gives credence to that proposition. If the axiom of math validated 2 plus 2 equaling 4, then you can determine whether or not 2 actually does equal 4 via those axioms. Simply just saying that we don't know and we're only specifically limited to a specific method or way of understanding X, and X
Wait,
is the
Malfa, I
placeholder.
wasn't
Wait,
listening. Can
stop.
you repeat the first part? I'm asking you to repeat the first. I was listening.
Oh, I got you. I'll just put it simply. So I'm saying it will be kind of fallacious to say that we can only conclude upon the why just via a specific way of understanding it. Just because we don't know of a way physically does not mean we cannot know of a way, or there's other methods to come to a means of
Yeah,
determining
okay.
existence.
Look,
Wait. To finish, there is nothing logically inconsistent about that proposition or claim. To then add upon that, to repeat the first part, my point is that you can be rationally or a priori justified, or tautologically speaking, justified in believing X proposition. Because you could say, well, if it actually is true via the axioms of math that 2 plus 2 equaling 4, then it would actually be true via what those axioms would entail that
yeah, I
2 plus 2 would
disagree with
actually
a
equal 4.
priori things existing.
Okay, I want an argument for that.
Yeah, look. Okay, so first, there's no knowledge without any input. There's no knowledge without some kind of input. A priori claims, arise from independent of any experience. But how can a mind arrive at any content without any prior exposure? That makes no sense.
You said
Even if
what?
logic and math are shaped by experience, like we generalize patterns,
You said what?
we
Yeah,
have habits that
repeat
mean 2 plus
repeat
2 plus
what you
4.
said, bro. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, okay. A priori claims arise independent of experience, right? Obviously.
A priori
But
claims. Oh, okay, you're confused. A priori
no, what
claim.
you know what a
Wait,
priori?
bro. Yeah, I know
Experience
what
is
an a
seen
priori
before.
claim.
So
I
before
know what
any
that is,
evidence.
bro. I'm saying an
Okay,
a
before
priori
any
claim.
evidence.
But chill out. A priori claim is true, independent upon empirical justification. That's what you mean to say.
Yeah, okay, look, I
Because you
said
can
that
have
these.
not. Wait, stop, bro. There's a difference between just knowledge and knowledge conducted upon empirical virtues. Those are two different things.
Okay, look, so you're just gonna let me. Okay, look, an a priori claim just arises independent of any experience. But how can a mind arrive at any content without any prior exposure? That just makes no sense.
Because I just
Because
told you.
look again, look. Even logic and math, these two things are shaped by experience.
Okay, I'll
Like
put it in
us
chat so
generalizing
I'll put it in
habits,
chat so
or
you can
us
understand.
generalizing patterns, and us, looking at habits and stuff like
Principle
that.
of addition: x plus y equals xy. So 2 plus 2 equaling 4.
Also, I think a priori thing just goes circular.
The logical truth.
Yeah,
Keep talking
a
about.
priori, I think they're circular and just give no explanatory power.
Who was the nigga in chat?
Yeah, but yeah, I think a priori things are circular and just give no explanatory power.
Well, okay. Why?
Yeah, because a priori. So most, if not all, I'm pretty sure a priori truths are just true by definition. Like for example, bachelors being unmarried, that's a priori. But that's only because of the way that's only because of the way we defined it to be. These aren't like actual truth about the world. They're just true about language or how we use language.
No,
So
it's
I
true
just see
about
no
language.
explanatory power that actually a
I
priori
think
delivers
you're
to
thinking
the
of an
world.
analytical truth and a synthetic truth. You can have an
No,
analytical chill. You can have something that's analytical, and then its the contents or description correspond to a part of reality. Language just helps us determine and understand the concepts or the things that actually do exist in reality. I don't think that really attacks my point.
look.
So
Okay,
again, where is
you
the
just completely,
contradiction?
you literally just look. You completely ignored everything because what I said was a priori truths are analytical truths, right? Or most of them are analytical truths. Like you would
Okay,
agree
I
that
have a
2 + 2 = 4 is analytical truth,
wait, I have a
or a
question. Do you think your
priori.
argument is
Or,
logical? Do you
I
think
think my argument is logical.
do you think your argument is logical or has an inference rule?
I don't. How does this actually relate to anything that we're talking
Yeah,
about?
okay, it relates to the. Okay, listen. Do you think your argument has an inference rule? Or is the argument
I
valid?
don't see how this will look. I just don't see the relevance of this.
Okay, not get my point.
I want to
Logic.
talk about the a
Okay,
priori truth.
chill. You believe in classical logic, right?
How does this relate? Look, can you just explain how this relates?
Sure. Okay, I'll explain. If your argument is logically valid, it has an inference rule guaranteeing the premises and the conclusion have a relation, and the premises can go to the conclusion. So it's really just a way to preserve the truth of arguments. So for example, when I say if P then P, therefore Q, that argument is logically valid. Is it sound? No, we can give evidence to make it sound though. But the way we determine it, if it's a valid argument, is if it has an inference rule. So do you think your argument has an inference rule, and do you think your argument abides by
I
the three
genuinely
laws?
like you just never really explained inference.
Oh,
My
okay.
fault.
Oh,
Relevancy.
okay,
I just
okay,
want to
okay,
talk about
okay, okay.
I want to talk about
Okay,
the a priori. Look, I just want to talk about the a priori thing a bit more because
okay. Okay. Wait.
as I said, a priori,
Can I finish? I wasn't
I was
finished.
literally talking though.
Oh my God.
I
I
was
wasn't. No, I
literally
wasn't even done
lost
with my
here.
example though.
No, because you asked me again. Do I think you gave me a question and I said, well, again,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
asked you
think
a question. I'm adding on to the
because I
question.
want to talk about the a priori thing is a bit more.
Bro, this is the a priori thing.
Okay, can you explain how it relates back to it? Because how does
Okay.
soundness and validity equate back to whether something is
Okay.
a
Do you
priori?
think logic is a descriptive thing? Like,
I mean, I don't know what you mean. Like, do you
or
think
rather,
you think it
it's like wait, or rather, it's prescriptive. Like you prescribe it or you ascribe it to things.
I think logic is just the way we describe things in reality.
Okay, I don't think that's what logic is, but okay.
I mean, okay. I mean, that's
Okay,
fine.
I think logic. Again, if you abide by the three laws of thought, it's just classical logical laws. So we have the law of the excluded middle, the law of the non-contradiction, and the law of identity.
Can you explain how this
So
just like goes
wait,
back?
chill. I'm finna explain the point. Chill out. So if your argument is valid, then you would have strict principles of you would have strict principles of validity that the argument would have. That's distinct from the contents of the argument itself that you're using to reach an empirical conclusion. If that's the case, then the axioms of logic, the way you think or you would determine the argument is valid and sound, are inherently distinct from the evidence itself you're using to. Obviously, you're using the argument to model the evidence. If that's the
Wait,
case,
look,
then if you
look.
stop. If you reject a priori truths, I think logic would be a priori truth.
I'm not. Yeah, I think that logic and stuff like that is something that we learn through experience. I don't think we gain it before
What
an
does that?
experience.
What does that mean?
I think logic is a posteriori rather than a
Bro,
priori.
you can learn of logic, and logic can still govern
Yeah,
anything.
I can learn. Yeah, okay. So I'm learning it through my experiences.
Okay,
I
do you
think you
think it's
said
a necessity, bro? Shut up. Do you think it's possible for logic to exist without you learning it?
I don't know.
There's no contradiction.
Because because I'd have to assume logic for me to determine whether something is possible or not. Because for some to be
You're
look,
confused.
look again,
You use logic and you prescribe it to the arguments you make. That's why I
no,
said you can use logic as a model to map the argument
look,
and
you didn't
explain
even
the
let me
argument.
finish.
Okay, go
You didn't
ahead.
let me finish. So can I?
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I think that for me to say, can I have a world where or can I have a world where logic isn't, or where I fucking experience logic without me ever learning about it, right? I don't think that's conceivable for me personally because, well, for me to determine whether something is logical or not,
Oh,
I'd already
are
have
you
to
talking
assume
about
the
the
three laws of
conceivability
logic.
thesis, bro?
I'd already have to assume the three laws of logic.
Yeah. Okay, are you talking about the conceivability? What are you talking about?
No, I'm just saying that I don't know whether I can learn about the three laws of logic without experiencing
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so it's an
Because for me to say that, I'd already have to
It's
assume the three laws of
bro.
logic.
Okay, so it's either a epistemic issue or a metaphysical issue. It is not logically inconsistent for logic to exist